Welcome to the Studio Success Formula Podcast, the business school for dance studio owners. And now for your host, Clint Salter.
Gini, I'd love for you to start by telling our studio owners a little bit about what you do in your company today and how you help business owners use digital communication to grow their business.
Sure. So, it's really exciting because I will use this in quotes, but I grew up, quotes, in the big traditional PR firm. I worked at a global firm and, I had huge opportunity. I worked on multi-million-dollar businesses and ran gigantic programs and got really good experience. But in that time, there wasn't anything that you could do to measure the effectiveness of your work because I hate to say this out loud, but the web the web existed, but it didn't really exist from a business perspective. People were just talking about getting websites, it wasn't sort of, you have to have it kind of thing. And so you didn't have this opportunity to not only collect data, but to really measure the effectiveness of your programs. So fast forward to today, which is 15 years later, you now have the opportunity to know exactly what people are doing when they come to your website, what they're looking for, whether or not you're providing it, and how you can convert those people to customers. So that's what we really do, is help business owners understand how you're going to use digital communication and measure it so that you are actually making money.
I love it because I remember back in my days when I was an agent for TV and media personalities, and we worked with a lot of publicists, and they were always doing media releases, and I was like, what is this media release actually going to do if we put it out in the newspaper?
Correct.
And so it's great now that it's a little bit easier to kind of see where your return on investment is, and I love what you're doing now because we can see what a return on investment is. When we talk to our studio owners, we know that when a lead comes in and then they enroll in our studio, we essentially can find out how much that person has cost us to enroll in our dance studio, which is exciting. So
it is exciting. I
want to get into that digital communication a little bit more. So explain to us, what is digital communication?
I guess I would just define it as communicating with customers and prospects on the web. So, using your blog, using social media, using email, using video, using podcasting, using some sort of digital, I guess digital, I was going to say written, but it's not always written because you can have video and audio like what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Having that digital component to communicating with your customer and prospects.
Yeah, perfect. And a lot of those methods that you just talked about are ones that hopefully our studio owners are using. What do you see being effective when it comes to communicating to our customers? What are the first things that we need to figure out, I guess, before we even go to our customer?
I would really figure out, where your customers hang out online. So, it would probably be fairly easy for me to say, just make a guess based on what I know, and it's probably Facebook, and Pinterest, I would guess, and Instagram. But you also have email, which everybody forgets about because we're all so enthralled with the new shiny objects that we forget about email. Everybody has an email address. So I would really think about, from a social perspective, where are people already hanging out, and prioritize those social networks because it's probably in more than one place. And then how can you start to collect email addresses? And then what kinds of content is going to be valuable to your audience? So you don't want to have just self-serving content that talks about, the Nutcracker viewing that you're going to have on December 22nd. That's great, but you also want to talk about things that are happening in the community, other things that you can do, partner sales, things like that isn't super self-serving but helps you grow engagement from your customers and prospects.
Perfect. What are some of the mistakes that, business owners, we're talking specifically about dance studio owners, but what are some of the mistakes that people are making early on when I guess they create their strategy when it comes to digital communication?
I'm going to give you a very personal experience. We have a dance studio down the street that we have been active in for a couple of years now, and it infuriates me that 3 things do not happen. 1, it's impossible to find the new schedule on the website. Impossible. I can't pay for a session on the website. And I can't reach anyone either by phone or email or social media. I can't reach anyone. The only way I can reach somebody is to leave a voicemail and get a call back. It infuriates me.
So that's what I love is that you're our listeners' audience. You are the person that is paying the money for the dance classes. So we get to hear, and I love what you're saying, about the schedule. Yes, the fees online, guys, this is one that we've talked about a lot before, having the enrollment process online through your website, having, allowing people to pay online and hopefully through, reoccurring income. So setting up a direct debit system. Yes. So I love it. And not being available. So Gini, are you calling, all times of the day and no one's answering the phone, or in the mornings? Like, is that?
No, I try all the time. And I run a business. This is not what I'm doing, is sitting around waiting for somebody to call me back. So typically they call me back when I'm in a meeting, which, isn't helpful. And then of course the dance instructor, when we're there on Saturdays and Sundays, is not the business owner. So she's not empowered to, and this is, I would say, another thing, but that it's not digital, but empower your employees to make some decisions and accept money and all those kinds of things, which she's not empowered to do. So I love the idea of being able, and not just because of my own experience, I would recommend this to any client, being able to enroll online, pay my fees, and then they do special things. Like during the holidays, they had, you could go dance the Nutcracker, or you could do, I think they had Frozen, you could pay for those extra days, right?
Yeah.
And then when the session's coming up to an end, I'm automatically enrolled, so that I don't have to go through that process of tracking you down and trying to give you my money and all that. I mean, if my child weren't at the age where it's pretty important, I'd be like, this is too much of a pain just to give you my money. So I love that idea of having that auto renewal, of just so that you have that recurring payment, and you can drive people to that from your communications.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the email marketing side of it. And it's funny, I was just writing an article about this yesterday, so it's kind of top of mind for me. But again, it's something that I feel like, especially our studio owners, aren't using, because they're like, well, we send out a newsletter once a month, maybe once every 2 months, and that's kind of it. What I know, right? What's some of your advice? And this isn't everyone as well, guys. I don't want you to be offended by this. This is a generalization. But how can we really use email marketing to, and you've touched on this, to acquire those new people, to get that email address when they show that initial interest, but also to use it within our studio to help, retain and serve our current customers?
Well, I think, there are a few things that you can do. One is really think about, and I know that some studio owners are really sophisticated and innovative and sort of ahead of their times and are creating blog posts and things like that. Send the blog posts out. Do a recap, the most popular blog posts of the month. Look around the web and say, wow, I really liked these articles this week, and do a recap of the 5 best articles that you liked or the podcasts or videos that you liked of the week. So I would really think about it from a content perspective, but also how can you drive people, to buy? So if you sell, dancewear in your studio, what kinds of things can you drive people to buy that? When there's new sessions coming up, what kinds of things are going to drive new people to that? So you do want to have some sales stuff in there, but really think about content that's going to help people say, wow, I don't want to go to any other studio. And then so that's for people that are already saying, yes, I'm doing this. But then I think you have the audience that you're competing for them with gymnastics and ice skating and swimming and, all these other activities that kids can be involved with. So how do you create content that sort of sets you apart from all those others? And some of it I think is very much speaking to the parents who did dance. I mean, I minored in ballet in college, so that's where my kid's going to go no matter what. But how do you speak to the parents that don't necessarily know about dance or are trying to decide between swimming, gymnastics, and dance? That kind of content. So the top 5 differences, or what you learn from ballet that you wouldn't learn from other activities. So what you get when you combine ballet, tap, and another
jazz
discipline. Yeah, jazz. Okay, good, that works. But what do you get when you combine all those compared to swimming or gymnastics? I think that's the kind of content that you want. So you really think about the people who are already inclined to do dance, and then you think about the people who are already inclined, who aren't inclined but could be convinced. So the people that you're competing with against those other activities.
You've brought up a great point around the blogging and standing out, because if there's one thing I hear a lot about with our studio owners, it's that, Clint, another dance studio's open up the road. There's another one open up the road. Like every week there's another dance studio opening, and setting yourself apart is a conversation that we have. It feels like every week in our association, and it's because I think a lot of the times everyone's using the same language.
Right.
Everyone's selling, have fun, build confidence, dance the latest things that you see on, online, on YouTube. Everyone's using the same language. So how can we really distinguish ourselves from other people? What's something that you would suggest to a client to do if they're struggling with sounding a bit same?
Well, I think you need to think about it from the perspective of what makes you personally different and what makes your studio different. So what are you really passionate about? I'm going to give you an example, and this is actually top of mind because I'm using it as a case study in a webinar in a couple of weeks. But there's a real estate developer in Canada, and he opened his business in 2007, which was probably the worst possible time that you could open a residential home building business ever in the history of residential home building. Worst time ever, because of course we hit 2008 and nobody was buying. The housing market exploded.
Yeah.
So he starts this business, and he thinks, holy crap, I can't go out of business in my first year. What do I do? And what he did is he started blogging and using Twitter. That's all he did. He didn't try to get on all the other platforms or try to be all things to all people. And he talked about things like home trends and the 10 ways you can pack more into your car when you're moving, and the latest and greatest restaurant in the area. And he developed partnerships with other business owners in his community so that he was talking about what they were doing. And so it allowed him to talk to what he was passionate about. It allowed him to talk to his business, but it also helped him stand out because nobody else was doing that. Everybody else was freaking out that they weren't able to sell any homes. And he just really got in there and was part of the community and said, here's the place you should go this weekend, or here are the top 10 things you should take your kids to do this weekend. Or, he really did that, and people started buying from him. And he said in 4 years, his business went from 0 to 4. It grew 400%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So it really is. It's, even though you're part of it, in something like dance, which is very personal, is that you're really relying on yourself, finding out from yourself, okay, what is it that I stand for? What's unique about me? What can I offer? And then the business, I guess, is an extension of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's important, because often, studio owners are looking sideways a lot at what everyone else is doing.
Sure.
And I'm always like, put on those blinders. You've got people to serve. You've got great teachers and great customers and parents. There's other people out there that you want to bring into your family as well. Like, stay focused. And it's a difficult one. How do you stay focused with the business that you have? There's a lot of people in the world that are talking about digital communication and online. What's your strategy around not looking sideways?
It's hard. I was just going to say, I certainly look at what competitors are doing, and people who I don't necessarily consider competitors from a business perspective, but definitely from an online perspective. And it is hard. It's hard not to compare yourself. It's hard not to look at things that they're doing. But, I always, whenever I sit down to create new content, which is every day, I always think to myself, how is this going to add value to my audience? So yeah, I can look at what Jay Baer or Mark Schaefer or Danny Brown or Ann Handley or any of the other marketing gurus are doing, for sure. And I look at them for ideas and trends and things like that. But if I try to create the same piece of content that Mark Schaefer just did, it's not going to do anything. So I always try to give it my perspective, my own perspective.
Yeah. Perfect. I love that. I think that's good. I want to talk about reputation, because a lot of our studio owners, I was working with a client last week and she said to me, Clint, we've got this reputation of being the competition school where you come to if you want to be a competitive dancer, but we've got 300 students that are in our recreational classes that are having a great time and they only come once a week, but everyone sees us as like, whoa, don't go there. They're super competitive. So what can we do to, I guess, if we're in the early stages, if it's a new studio owner listening to this, really deciding on, okay, what do we want to be? What do we want to be known for? But then for those other studio owners that are listening that might have been around for a little while and they do have a reputation of being just the recreational school or the highly competitive studio, what can we do? And I know that it takes time, but what can we do to, I guess, shift that perception more around what we actually are and what we're about?
It's so funny you asked this right now, because I just had a conversation with a friend who is very well known as sort of the manufacturing, technology, like construction, nitty gritty business. He's really well known as sort of the marketing expert for those industries. And what he wants to do is he wants to get away from that and start going to bigger organizations. He wants Microsoft and Apple and IBM and GE and Siemens and all those big companies to recognize him as a speaker and an expert and as a consultant. So I said to him, and this is the same advice I would give to your audience, is you have to start creating content that shows that you are, that you have that expertise. So it goes to every piece of content that you produce, video, audio, text. It goes to every email communication. It goes to the messaging on your website. On the website, perhaps she has a tab that says for competitors and then for recreation, so she can, even on the homepage, there's a button that says for recreation and one that says competitive, and then whatever you click on takes you to a different microsite that gives you different information. So you have to communicate that, because if you're allowing people, your customers, to dictate that for you, they're always going to see it differently than you do. So you have to take the lead on that.
Yeah. Yeah, makes complete sense. And I love, it's something so simple. As you were saying that, I was like, that really is pretty simple, of, being more aware and putting out content out there that's not biased. Because It's so funny. I talked to another studio owner who said to me, Clint, I'm, facing this problem. Everyone thinks we're a competitive school. And I looked at their Facebook page, and all it was essentially photo after photo was children with trophies.
And why that's the perception.
And I said, well, it's not being by accident that's the perception, is because you've got kids with like their leg up against their ear holding a trophy, doing what I call like scary face, which is the smile is like so intense. And I said, you know what, that'll do it. How about some nice photos of like in the foyer or in class with like their kids' arms around each other, having a good time, that'll help. So
that definitely help.
I love that.
That's funny.
In terms of creating content, we've talked a little bit about blogging, Gini, and one thing that our studio owners say often is, I'm not a writer. Clint, but I'm not a writer. Like I don't know. I kind of sit there and I've got the idea, but I'm not a writer. What would you say to those people?
Get it on video or do a podcast. You don't have to write.
Yeah.
Tell the story through images.
Yeah, so I think that's a good one as well. What are your thoughts about outsourcing, like having a copywriter kind of take your ideas and give it shape and put it into a written form?
Hey, look, I use a writer, so I mean, what she does for me is I give her the idea and a few bullet points. She gets it out on to paper for me, and then I go in and sort of add my voice and tweak a few things. And the longer we work together, the better she gets at it. So if I love to write, but I have to outsource it just because it's a time thing. So
totally.
Yeah, so I don't see any problem with that at all. As long as you're willing to go through the approval process and make sure that it is in your voice and it is giving something a different perspective than your competitor down the street, then yeah, I don't see a problem with it at all.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really important as well. Don't just, we do the same, we do the same thing. And, one thing I've learned over the years is, you still need to, be the person that it starts with and it ends with.
Right.
You can't just say, here's a headline, go and write an article and then post it.
No.
It's unfortunately not. But you want it to be you. Otherwise it just sounds like everything else out there on the internet as well.
It does, because what happens when you hire a writer is, even if they're internal, if they're a full-time or part-time employee and not a consultant, even if that happens, they still don't have your voice. And so, they could create content galore, but what they're having to do is go to the internet like everybody else and, sort of figure out, what should I say about this and what are the tips with that? And so it does sound like everybody else. So you can then go in and just add your piece to it that gives it your own perspective.
Yep, perfect. Converting leads. So at the moment, we're talking a lot with our studio owners about, Facebook advertising and blogging and all different things. And how do we actually get that customer that's looking at one of our ads or reading one of our blogs or watching one of our videos to, I guess, take the first step? So maybe that's to give us their contact details to receive a piece of information, or maybe it's a free class pass or an unlimited week class or some type of offer. What do we need to look for when we're setting up this type of campaign to convert more people?
I was just talking to a client a couple of weeks, well, probably last week. It seems like a couple of weeks ago, but a couple of weeks ago was the holidays, so probably last week. And she was talking about how they are using Twitter cards, and she told me that the conversion rate on Twitter cards is far higher than anything else that they're doing. And the reason being is that they create the ads for Twitter, and then they send 2 out at the same time that are similar, but not totally the same. And then an hour later, they look to see what kinds of results they're getting, and they tweak the message and they send it out again. And so they do this every hour for 10 hours on the first day. And then whichever one ranks highest in terms of getting email addresses, that's what they run for the next week. And then they do it again. And she said that they're getting like a 25% conversion rate, which is unheard of, because they're taking the time to do this. And all they're doing is providing an opportunity to take a free trial. So same kind of thing. If you provide an opportunity for a free class or a week of free classes or something like that, drive those Twitter cards to your website where people can download, give you the email address in order to get that coupon code or QR code or however you're doing it. Now you have the email address, and now you can actually start to not only nurture those leads, but convert them to sales.
I love that. We've just started doing Twitter cards this month. And it's interesting, and as well, it's really about, like you mentioned before, look at where your audience is hanging out.
Right.
Because that's the most important thing. But I think testing, would you agree, Gini, that like testing different channels is really important?
You have to test, no matter where you are, because otherwise you don't know. You can take a stab in the dark, but I mean, I can tell you based on experience and gut what I think is going to work, but your business, everybody's business is different. So you have to test it. You have to, even if you're not going to do it, every hour for 10 hours, you have to at least say, okay, once a day I'm going to go in and look to see what the results of these two are, and then Facebook ads or, whatever you decide to do, and tweak it and make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And guys, just really persist as well. I know a lot of you are doing Facebook ads, and you'll spend $10 and you'll say, but Clint, it didn't work, and it's the persistence piece. It's putting money towards it to see what audiences work, to see what message works, to see what copy works, image works. I mean, there's so many different variables as well, and it can get frustrating as well putting these campaigns together. Ginny, I'm sure you've had clients as well who are like, which one's going to work?
Yes,
any of these, it's taking up so much time and money. I mean, what advice do you give them?
Okay, first of all, a $10 test is probably not enough.
Yes.
You have to test. You have to be patient. And if it's not working, it's likely that it's something that you're not doing correctly. It's not being executed correctly. So then I would come back to you, someone on your team, and say, okay, based on what I've done here, A, B, and C, I'm not getting D. What am I missing here? So I think that's part of it, is really trying to understand, because this stuff does work if it's executed correctly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree. 100%. 100%. Let's talk about Spin Sucks, because it's your blog, great blog, by the way, and that's how I reached out to you originally, because I was like, wow, there's so much cool stuff on here, and it's fun as well, which I like. Tell me a little bit about the book and what got you to write it in the first place.
Well, the blog started in 2006. We'll celebrate our 10-year anniversary in September, which is insane. It's crazy. And, I have an English major, and so writing a book has always been on my list. Fiction is next, hopefully.
Nice.
So when I co-authored Marketing in the Round, which was my first book in 2012. And after the success of that, the publisher came back and said, now I know you have a second book in you and that it's probably Spin Sucks. Are you interested in doing it? And of course, at the time I was like, I'm not writing a book back to back year after year. And they talked me into it. So I wrote Spin Sucks in 2013 and it came out in 2014. And I wanted to make sure it wasn't just a compilation of blog posts. I wanted to make sure that it was sort of going to the vision that we have of changing the perception that people have of the PR industry. And so, I really took a look at our internal process and how we manage clients, and then I wrote a book about it. So it's been kind of fun because it certainly has allowed me speaking engagements and paid speaking engagements and, more clients and all those kinds of things. But it is not a small undertaking by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, exactly. Because guys, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I want to talk about the message of it. But in terms of writing a book, I mean, there's opportunity there for you guys to be writing and putting out this type of content as well.
Yes.
A lot of people have been instructed, studio owners, business owners, to spin their message. What's your take on that?
Considering the blog is called Spin Sucks. I think too that when we launched the blog, transparency and authenticity were not big buzzwords. So at the time it really was, how do we change people's perception that this is what we do, that we're liars or spin doctors? And now I would say that with the internet and with the kind of crazy people who don't have anything else to do but prove things wrong on the internet, with all of them out there, you have to be transparent and you have to be authentic, because the second you spin your message, you're going to be found out, and that just dilutes your trust entirely, and you cannot rebuild trust. I think it was Warren Buffett that said it best, and I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said, if you lose money for the firm, I will be forgiving. But if you lose reputation, you're finished. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the point is that if you spin your message, you will erode trust, and people will stop looking to you as the expert, and your reputation will be hurt. And there's not enough money in the world to buy that back. So don't spin, always be transparent, even if it hurts, because people are going to respect that much, much, much more than if you lie and you're found out.
Totally agree with you. Gini, love to finish up by asking you, you've worked with a lot of different business owners and have a business yourself. What are your 3 tips for running a successful business and leading an amazing life? What are those 3 magic ingredients, Gini?
Well, if it's running a successful business and leading an amazing life, I would say set boundaries. The work is always going to be there, but you don't want to miss out on certain life things. And your boundaries may be different than mine. My boundaries are no work after 6 p.m. during the week and nothing on the weekends. Don't call me at 5 p.m. on a Saturday night. I will not answer. Mm-hmm. So set boundaries. I would say, really understand work-life balance. And for many business owners, work is life and life is work, but you still need a break. And so really think about that from that perspective. And then the last thing I would say is it's really, really, really easy to look at what everybody else is doing and think, I'm not there yet, or why am I not that successful? And just remember that people are putting out what they want you to see, not necessarily what's true. So to your point, put on the blinders, go forth and prosper, and kick some butt.
I love it. Gini, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. Where can our studio owners go for more information about you?
Spinsucks.com is the easiest. Everything's there.
Yeah, and check it out, guys. There's some really, really awesome content that I think would really serve you all as well. Thank you, Gini. Such a pleasure.
Are you enjoying the Studio Success Formula podcast? Then we'd love for you to share the love. We want to help more dance studio owners become go-to studios, so we'd greatly appreciate you writing us a review on iTunes. For taking the time out to do so, every month, Clint will be selecting one lucky dance studio owner to receive a Power Business Coaching session. Simply visit the iTunes store today, search for Studio Success Formula, click on ratings and reviews, and then write your review. Thanks in advance. Take care, and we'll see you next time.